Welcome, everybody, to our Nspirience Sacred Self-Healing Community Workshop. Today, we are going to talk about the subject of mind control. So good to see you. As you know, these workshops are for interaction. They are for asking questions, for sharing, for commenting. It's very important that you see this as an opportunity to contribute. As you have probably noticed yourself when you listen to these recordings, every time somebody shares, it really brings in like an augmented way of understanding the topic. So today we are talking about probably one of the most important topics of our times, of our era, namely mind control or brainwashing. And we will go through the deeper understanding of mind control, how it uses the dualisms of our own mind and ego, what these methods, what these tactics of mind control are, how to counteract it, and how to develop more discernment and authenticity through the experience of mind control. And here I would like to ask you right away, who has had a conscious experience, a conscious, like you were aware that you were in some way mind controlled in their lives? Who of you has had an experience that in hindsight maybe you would call you were mind controlled? And I want to just remind everybody that mind control can happen in all different areas of life. Yeah, so this is not just on a big scale. This can also happen in relationships and families, in school, at work, anywhere, between friends, between partners. Yeah, Justine, you think so? This is interesting. Yeah, let us know if you have a little more conscious insight to that, where or how this might have occurred.
Well, I can answer that because it's always retroactively that you wonder, at least for me. And I just did a bunch of cleaning, so if I've got a pretty so I was at work. The example is I was at work and I just kind of felt the need to kind of turn my chair a bit, and then I think I'll take a little sip of my drink, and then the big boss is coming down the aisle. We're all in cubicles, and then right after that they announced, "Thou shalt face forward when you drink. Thou shalt tuck your chair in, put your keyboard in." And I'm like, that was weird. Like, why did I end up doing it just as the boss came? Okay. So it was like they were looking for people to do that, and I just happened to do it because and I'm like, I wonder. So it had me wondering. That's why I think so, because I never do that. So were they looking?
It made you do something. It's like programmed. Is that what you've observed?
Well, they were looking out,
kind of like autopilot.
Yeah, I'm not sure in that regard. It just, because I just flow most of the time, and I do my best to focus where it's really necessary, perhaps like right this second. and that's a really light example of mind control. But when I get immediate headaches for no reason at all, out of the blue, then I kind of wonder what's going on here. And that's where I say I think so, because it's never truly clear to me when it is occurring, other than there is a significant shift from where I was to where I am for no obvious trigger.
That's a good sort of first definition. Okay, so you've reflected on two different kinds of control, outer control. One that kind of makes you do things, like you actually literally physically do things, sort of autoresponder type of things. And the other kind, and it's safe to talk about these things here in this sacred self-healing community, because we all sort of self-identified energetically sensitives, and many of us are empaths, in this sort of unseen or delusive way. Okay, so you've identified that there are some obvious ways of control, outer control, and some not so obvious, and that these can actually lead to you sort of constantly questioning actually what you're doing, because it's not coming from you. It shifts or alters your state or your thinking or your perception or even your behavior. Thank you, Justine. That was
you're welcome.
Good input.
Yeah.
Brian here is sharing through religion for me. Do you want to add anything to this, Brian? I think many of us can concur that certain social groups, and the church is a social group. Yeah.
Well, I don't mean it was done in an intentional, like, covert way or anything, but just repeated patterns, rituals like that growing up in a particular religion, and you just accept it as a way of life. You don't question it or anything.
Yeah.
So, but I know in my elementary school years, somewhere, 4th, 5th grade, something like that, I know for me, the whole God program, if you will, was presented to me, something that just didn't add up. So there is some...
But you're pointing at something here, when this happens in early childhood or childhood, that there is a component here that makes us not question it. All right, so it kind of sets sort of the frame of reference for us, how we see things. And it isn't until later, right, when we start sort of questioning it.
For me, I almost combined it. I mean, I would say that in a way, I took it as my, the meaning of my life force or existence or something,
So it can go
along
pretty
with that
deep.
comes,
yeah.
Oh, very, very deep. I'm sure there's still recesses in my subconscious I haven't reached yet. It's an amazing also how the shame and guilt.
I was just going to say, not just how you see the world, but also how you see yourself and how you perceive yourself.
More so how, initially I went through a period of externalization, seeking, like, well, what's this all about? So I read everything. And then I think there was something that ticked in me, 20 years ago, maybe something like that, 30 years ago, where I was beginning to understand that all the secrets to everything were hidden within, so to speak. Not to sound so, woo-woo or mystical or anything, but
Brian,
I was able to find answers that way.
Do you think this ever, this is what I hear you say is that there's a sort of a process of discovery going on in you still to this day, where when you
definitely. I've accepted the fact.
Under the influence somehow?
I've accepted the fact that I finally accepted the fact that discovery is forever. The journey is forever. And so it's really cool because my perspective has changed to something that was, laborious and didn't really want to get into, has turned to more of a insightful perspective and inquisitive in a way.
Yeah, I like this perspective that you're bringing in here. Obviously, programming, that happens at an early stage. So religion is a very a common example. Schooling as well, that all these things obviously determine how we see the world and also how we see ourselves. Yeah, I was just going to ask you, because you said as a child and as an adult, Cheryl.
Yeah, Brian noticed his through religious teachings. I had a narcissistic father, and I believed everything he said because he didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. And that came, from infancy onward. And I can see the pattern in my life of being vulnerable to to liars, basically, because I seemed to have a warped concept of what truth was, because it didn't get shown that, or it doesn't feel like I got shown that. And so it took a long time to recognize how to discern truth. And through all this, I mean, I've always been what I would call like a good person. And I was always very susceptible to finding people that would show me the opposite of what good feels like. It was interesting. So started as a kid, and then moved through, and then it finally the light really shone how warped my thinking had become, or belief system had become, when I was with a narcissist, a really well-skilled narcissist as an adult. Like when I turned 50, I met this person and spent 5 years with them, and I was just blown away at how naive I was at the end of it. Like I was no longer naive, but I had to seem to have this masterpiece of a narcissist before I could really see how mind controlled I was susceptible through my entire life. So yeah, when I think as Brian brought up, when you get introduced to that kind of warped whatever as a child, I can see how you just don't have what it takes to see it until you see it. And then when I did see it, I was like, oh my God. And then I had to be very cautious about not being filled with self-beratement for being so stupid. I did go through that, but on the other side of it, I can see it as the perfect training grounds. Mind control is everywhere. So when we meet someone who's genuine, it feels really different.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so thank you, Cheryl. You're pointing out how one can experience this in their most intimate relationships, right? I mean, you pointed at your father, your family constellation, and how this can then replicate into the romantic relationships. And here, I just want to point, we're going to go deeper into this, but I just want to point at the fact that there was this father figure, okay, which interestingly we also often find through religion or culture, okay? So there's something that can affect us more than other things, okay, especially if we have been programmed, yeah, I want to call this programmed or conditioned here for a moment, to accepting, like you said, you believed everything your father said. We all believe everything our parents say up to a certain level. It just depends on the methods that were used and how deep this goes. So, believing what we are being told, naivete or innocence, is part of our human condition. It takes about 20 years for us to develop the ability to think freely for ourselves. All right. But in that process, especially around teenagehood, we develop abilities to discern. And, if the messages that we receive are such that, we can have our own opinion. It's okay to feel what we want to feel or what we are feeling. It's okay to express that. Then all that can naturally evolve. If these programs that we were conditioned with, if they kind of entail some kind of absolutism, yeah, only this is true, or only what this book or what this person says is true, then it can skew our sense of truth. I like how you shared here how this sort of wove through your ability to discern, the authenticity of other people, especially men in your life. This is a very big one. Becky shares that she's experienced this when it came to about learning about things. I suppose you mean sort of in academia, or like self-help, maybe self-improvement, or schooling. Yeah. How was that for you, Becky? You're pointing at sort of you put the word free into quotation marks.
Yes, because it was initially a free program. I was like, oh, that's cool, it's free. So like I'll
Oh,
go.
as in, no, it doesn't cost you anything. I see.
Yeah. Yet, due to my own, externalization at the time, not seeing that there was a goal in mind on their end. And again, like Brian was saying, I don't think it was malicious. It felt very off in the workshop, and it still kind of confused me.
So hidden message. Are you talking more about the covert aspect of it, where something is propagated as good for you and it doesn't cost you anything, and that sort of thing, right? Where there's hidden messages somewhere in between that coerce you or persuade you to, well, I want to just add this, the most common form of that is into buying something, advertising something as free, and then if you want to go further, like sort of just giving you snippets or kind of teasing you a little bit, and then basically showing the truth.
Yes, it wasn't very covert. It was obvious what they were doing. It was just interesting because the way that they used like energy and affirmations was like, if you're feeling any resistance, then that means that you need to like work through and do the program.
So this is very coercive, what you're talking about, because when somebody says, if you feel like a human, fill in the blanks, right? If you feel this, any kind of human condition, then you need, all right, this plays on our way of perceiving ourselves, namely that we are flawed or imperfect and that we need something from the outside. So you just worked out a major tactic of mind control, namely to kind of give you the feeling that you are not enough, that you need something from the outside, and that I have that, or whatever, the program or whatever. This is when you study marketing, you're being taught that you should do it this way. This is the most common form of advertisement today. Every teaser video, every website, every come here for free type of advertisement deliberately plays on this. Deliberately. Thank you for adding this component here. And Denise is chiming in. She says, mind control seems to be in all areas of our life, media and programming through TV, religious, family, early childhood. I agree. We're going to go deeper into this here, as well as the question coming from Justine, what's the difference between mind control and programming? There really is no difference. Mind programming is a bit more of a more detailed way of looking at it, because there are certain programs that we all have as humans that can be misused, that can be deliberately or strategically misused. And then there are ways of controlling us through implanting unhealthy or delusional or self-destructive programs, which is a more sort of malicious form of mind control. But I think yes, Denise, I agree with you. We can all agree that mind control is part of our human experience, especially in this day and age. It's always been there, and we'll investigate why that is so. But it's socio-cultural, so we find this really everywhere, in work as well, ways of functioning, ways of performing in life. This is really important that you realize this, that it really occurs everywhere. It is not something woo-woo. It is not something, it's not a conspiracy theory. Guys, mind control exists everywhere, okay? And Annette is asking a good question that I would like to leave up to the very end. Is there also a good side? Are there good ways of mind control? The answer is yes. But only if it's done with the according consciousness, where you basically learn to control yourself, okay, and brainwash yourself, where you step into your own authority, okay, and reprogram yourself. So the cool thing about mind control is that it's actually relatively easy to detect once you educate yourself a little bit. So this is the main purpose here of our workshop today, to give us a little more insight to that. What is mind control? How does mind control work? What makes us susceptible to mind control? What is the damage? Yeah, how does our mind actually work? So what in our mind is being used for that? How can we protect ourselves, and the self-healing strategies? So let's go into the educational part here. You can Google this yourself. Wikipedia defines brainwashing, also known as mind control, menticide, coercive persuasion, thought control, thought reform, or re-education, is the concept that the human mind can be altered or controlled by certain psychological techniques. Okay, sounds a bit complicated, but yeah, so far. Brainwashing is said to reduce its subject's ability to think critically or independently, to allow the introduction of new unwanted thoughts and ideas to their mind, as well as to change their attitudes, values, and beliefs. Well, this is a bit complicated and really not so obvious here as the common sense way that we just talked about this before. The simplest way to understand mind control is that it is always external. Yeah, let's just agree on that. That comes from the outside. Then where does it occur? We have already identified this. We find mind control in all different ways, collectively, tribally, culturally, in any kind of social group. We find it in media, in social media, entertainment, recreation, movies, songs, and so forth, advertising, internet, IT, algorithms. That is basically sort of the new way here that was introduced to us like 30, 40 years ago. But we also find it in families, relationships, cults. Cults have basically perfected mind control mechanisms to the point where it can turn a person into self-destructive behavior all the way to suicide, which is quite an accomplishment. But we can also look at political organizations. We can look at, for example, in history, to more sort of, like say, in national socialism in Germany, for example, as one of the most famous examples on how to turn a whole entire nation into a cult, and also most recent phenomena here in our societies on the political arena. We also find, and this is probably one of the most classical and oldest form of mind control, in spirituality. Religion is just one way. Yeah, spiritual beliefs and the mystification of things, things that cannot be proven. It's a lot easier to coerce us, to persuade us with things that are not fact-based. All right, and we have well, it's not a newer form, but it is new to us and increasingly more aware to people like us, to energetically sensitives, that there can also be mind control in the etheric, in the unseen realm. Just real quick, a question here by hand signs. Who of you has actually experienced some kind of, well, let's just call it unseen? I mean, Justine, you've already mentioned maybe the presence of it, but you can't put a finger on it. I'm not asking if you can determine it, but who of you has an experience of some kind where you feel that mind control was, or you were subject to mind control in a more energetic or etheric sense? Let me see some hand signs here. You know, maybe through a person or a group of persons that you find sort of energetically or etherically powerful. Spiritual healers, or people call them spiritual healers. Yeah, it's a few of you. Not that many. I just want you to know that we have a series here at transCODES called Energetic Self-Mastery, and that the end of last year, November and December, we had a 3-part energetic self-mastery course, 6 hours of going through the mechanisms of mind control, brainwashing, narcissistic abuse, and cult techniques, including etheric abuse. Etheric abuse is a new term, not quite accepted, not at all. It's very highly controversial, discussed in psychology yet, but a increasing phenomenon. So it's not many of you who have experienced this. Those of you who have, would you like to share just real quick so that someone who listens to this and doesn't quite know what I'm talking about can hear this with different words? Just real quick, what made you believe that you were under the influence of, like, say, I mean, this could be anything, like maybe an entity or a person using not even less obvious techniques or perhaps technology to alter your own agency, your free thinking, your sense of self? Yeah, Cindy is referring to something that has to do with spirit guides, so kind of like feeling an intervention from some kind of inner or spiritual guidance. That is not always negative, but it's not always positive either. It requires a lot of energetic discernment. Yes, there's many people, this is obviously a big part of my practice, who come to me and say, they feel like the presence of some kind of technology. There's this big discussion also about 5G, guys. I just want you to put this into perspective, okay? Perhaps altering our minds. There's remote viewing, remote control, remote influencing. There are, mentalism as an art form. Hypnotism, obviously, is one of the classic ones. What are some others? Working with an elder, okay, working with some kind of spiritual authority, yeah, healer, shaman, elder. You once noticed, Cheryl, that she was energetically entering you without your permission. And as you noticed this, you quit working with her. Those are very typical examples. Yeah, some people are convinced or feel this is some kind of just inner feeling that they're being stalked or observed somehow energetically. Some people feel this in form of intrusive thoughts or dreams. Entities in the house. Yes. Yeah. The ghosts or poltergeists, perhaps.
These are all fantastic examples, and I'm so grateful that you're having this conversation. I wish I had known this like 20 years ago, because it's happened so many times, and it really comes down to a feeling for me, and very, very occasionally, depending on my state, quote unquote, I can sort of see something, but that don't it's not like woo woo or anything. It's more like just it's like a feel, see, new sense, like it's a combination of those two senses. And through many of the, I know this is not meant to be an ad, but it's an actual fact, through many of the transmissions when I've done them, I have learned so much on how to move. Like I received some beautiful, I'll call them teachings through the transmissions that have allowed me more to discern better. So I'm just so grateful that you're having this conversation, because it's a little bit scary sometimes, and it makes it difficult to discern what is real and not real, and how to move forward with the things that are like just day-to-day life.
Yeah, Justine, the damage of that this can do to us, to not quite know, can be severe. Okay, and just so you know, with the increasing number of energetically sensitives, there's also an increasing or growing awareness of the presence of those kind of manipulative or coercive or controlling forces in the unseen. Okay, thank you for mentioning that. Some of these higher learning, meta learning, as I called, techniques or practices that we teach here at transCODES through transmissions, meditations, and energy processes actually helped you to discern. So this is a brand new technology, really, if you think about it. We are just awakening to this energetic sense that we have, and like always, when we expand our perspective, we begin to see things we didn't see before. So all that really means is that we need to learn how to discern, we need to educate ourselves, and we need to practice it. So yes, there are ways to do this, and at the very end here we'll come to some of these self-healing strategies and how we can get to a better discernment, so that the damage that the presence of something like this here, for example, can make us physically, mentally, or spiritually ill, that we can counteract this, that we can protect ourselves from it and better understand it. Because down the road, and the reason why mind control is such a popular topic right now, we have to understand that what scares us, all right, also really makes us more susceptible. So it's the unknown that we are most afraid of. And when you ask me what is the simplest way or the best way to inoculate ourselves from mind control, then my answer would always be education. Educate yourself on these techniques, how this works. I went to school, I went to high school and university in Germany in the 70s and 80s, guys, and I was trained, as part of this sort of re-education program in Germany to prevent fascism and neo-Nazism in society every year. And for me, things are on that secular level are very, very easy to detect, because I know the techniques, I know, and I also understand how simple they are. But when it comes to etheric abuse or etheric control, it's very elusive for people, and that's why they go into fear. And here I just want to point out that fear makes us extremely susceptible to outer control, which we will get to. Let's here in a minute. Let's just summarize what the damage is that mind control and any form of external control really can have on us. It removes our free choice and it attacks our sense of self. These are extremely terrible things if we understand ourselves as these sovereign soul selves that need to evolve and grow into our free will and our sense of self here as part of our evolutionary task. And if that is being attacked or removed, well, I go as far as saying that mind control really removes our humanness. All right, but this is maybe too far, too big of an arc for you right now, because how we experience it, the experiencer in us is, that it attacks our free thinking, that it separates us, that it makes us feel alone. It separates us from others and from the world, and often also from ourselves, from our own agency, which can then lead to making us feel powerless. Yeah, this is where the fear plays in. It can make us physically, mentally, spiritually ill, and this is very severe. As an energy therapist, I can tell you that especially here since last year, where we basically had outer conditions that forced us into more isolation and so forth, that the number of people who are beginning to severely becoming physically, mentally, and spiritually ill through any kind of external control is skyrocketing. Okay, this is one of the biggest issues in the future, and that's why energy healing and energy therapy will be, and self-healing among that, self-healing techniques will be sort of the biggest buzzword here in this whole sort of healing industry. Yeah, it suppresses the development of our consciousness, and thus, or through that, or as a phenomenon, keeps us in an illusion. This is why so many people are talking about this virtual reality and so forth. These things can be very real, and they are. So let's come to a little bit more understandable definition of mind control here. That's my version of it. Mind control is a deliberate manipulation, subversion, or coercion of a person's or people's values, worldview, thinking, feeling, perceiving, and acting by using the person's own mind against him or herself. And here we're now getting more into the, how this even works. Yeah, this is important to understand when we want to really, feel into how mind control can do this to us, even, with all the things that we know, with all the things that we think, we can see. How can it still happen, and why is it so important that, like some of you've shared here, to see this as a continual uncovering, as a continual process, and one that requires us to work with compassion and forgiveness towards ourselves, and not to berate ourselves, like Cheryl shared with us, because that can be part of the mind control methodology, really, to throw us into this state of inner separation, of inner confliction, of cognitive dissonances. What comes up for you when you see this sentence here? Using the person's own mind against him or herself. What comes up for you? You can't see this right now. Yeah, my computer is stalling a little bit. Just feel into this. What comes up for you when you feel into using a person's own mind against him or herself? Who wants to share? I'm not sure if I might have a technical issue here right now, because my computer, I don't know if you can see this, my computer is stalling.
We promise it's not computer control.
I can still hear you, Jona. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Okay, so let's just discuss and wait until my computer is done thinking. What comes up for you? Using the person's or your own mind against you.
How crafty that the entity or the person or the manipulation is, like, and it's a skill set. So when I think of the media, and that's what they do, in my opinion, is they base it on fear, and they know triggers, and they just continuously push the same loops over and over and over again. And that's what a narcissist will do. They'll figure out what your fear is, or in anybody that's trying to manipulate is what your fear is, not good enough, or you don't have enough, or those are the two basic things. And then they just figure out your soft spot, your Achilles heel, and they go into it repeatedly from different angles until you think it's your own thoughts. So it is your own thoughts, but they amplify the thoughts, and they do it consistently.
Yeah, I like how you brought the subject narcissism into this, because narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and ultimately the narcissistic injury that can stem from that is a big part. It goes right along the lines of mind control, but it's not just mind control, obviously. But it is, like you said, it is, sort of implanting a perspective or a way of perceiving things or persons or the world, so that the person literally believes it's their own. And, you say it's very crafty, but if you think about this, this isn't necessarily sort of sophisticated. How could we, inoculate?
Now your audio's gone.
Anybody else there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm here. Can't hear anything.
Yeah, I think she's dipped out. I sent her a note. See what happens.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on my phone right now. My computer decided to not cooperate. I'm here. So how do you think the easiest way for us to inoculate, to protect ourselves, could look like? Yeah, we just found out that the way it's being done is by implementing thoughts into us, making us believe that those are our own thoughts, right? And that's the simplest way of putting this. How can we best protect ourselves from that?
Well, two things come up for me.
What's the easiest way?
Not have them around? Avoid?
Who has an idea?
Stay in the heart as much as possible and know thyself. That's probably not the answer you're looking for.
Can you hear me, Justine?
Oh, were you talking?
Yeah, no, I was confirming. Yes, absolutely. Know thyself. Know how you think. Know how you come to conclusions. Know what your belief system is. Know what your ego traps are. Know, how you can be deceived. Know what your unmet needs are. What, sort of your weak spots. Yeah, know them. Know thyself. Absolutely. That is the best answer. Because if you can know yourself, you're not a victim. You don't have to be a victim of mind control. If you know your body, if you know your way of how your emotions work, how your own mechanisms are, yeah, and how you come to conclusions, how you come to decisions, then you can discern better. What is the problem with knowing ourselves? What's the problem with that? Why don't we just all do that?
Easier said than done.
Why is that?
Good question.
We don't learn how to be ourselves. It's a learned
Yeah, but right
response
now,
to.
this moment, I mean, you guys are, granted, you are a smaller part of the population. Okay. So not every person is on this path that you are on. Yeah. So, but right now, right here, you're having this insight, right? And you are recognizing that all you really need is to better understand yourself. And what is the problem here now? Not the past. What is the problem right now? What is in us? What comes
For
up
me,
here as resistance?
It's seeing how I myself engage in it as well.
Okay.
Mm.
What's the problem with that?
Well, there's none, but that's the resistance that comes up. It's like, oh no, don't say it. Don't say that you do that.
Why?
Because then that would mean that I'm just as, this is ego, just as bad or something.
Okay, it's okay to say it that way, Becky. It's actually healthy to say it that way because that's how you think it. Yeah, say it how you think it or how it comes forward.
Yeah, I'm just as bad. I'm just as quote unquote evil or conniving, sneaky, etc.
So there's a part of you that says, okay, if I really look at the truth of it, I'm using those things too. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So now the boundaries of, being controlled from the outside and maybe even perhaps controlling others in the same way, they're becoming a little more fluid, right?
Yes, and I can see it in others because I've seen it in myself.
You've seen it in yourself. So, okay, so there's what does this make you feel like? Guilty or?
Guilty, guilty.
Mm-hmm. This is important to understand. Yeah, so so we're all afraid of mind control. We have these huge ideas of how mind control happens, right? All the way to conspiracy theories, to aliens and all that. And we just came up with the realization that really all we need to not be so susceptible is to be honest with ourselves, right? And here, your ego, like most of our ego, says, I'm not sure if I want to really know that because that kind of makes me feel bad about myself. So this is the reason why I've put this workshop on the schedule here for us in this authenticity series, because there's a problem here. Can you say it? Can you identify it, any one of you? What's the problem? What's holding us back from,
our own truth? Being truthful with ourselves?
Yeah, and why? Simple. Because we like our delusions. We like it better if we can blame it onto someone. Ever thought about it that way? Isn't it?
Yep.
Isn't it?
It is much easier.
If we can say if we can say, oh no, that's his fault or her fault or society's fault or government's fault or God's fault, right? We feel a lot better about ourselves. So we don't want to.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, it's hard to admit in a way, but that's a simple truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Feels awful to actually admit that.
This is the first step, really.
Mm.
The first step is to understand what in us really resists it. Yeah. And then we can better understand, you know, through further educating ourselves, obviously, how this happens, okay, what it is that we need to work on.
So in a linear way, what if, so, okay, instead of being I'll just be direct. So today an example happened with my lovely dog where there was an external factor, and I did my very, very best not to do what you were saying. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way, but like not to externalize it. Yet it was really obvious I had to stand my ground because this owner's 2 male dogs were attacking my dog, and I was trying to protect her like the big mama bear, and it was actually becoming traumatic, and I'm going, okay, how do I go through this without blaming them, yet I still need to stand my ground. And it became really weird in my brain because I deserve to be able to walk my dog. Anyways, I'm not getting into the right and wrong of it, but I was trying to practice what you were saying, and yet I had to be, I didn't know what to do, so I just expressed myself and realized it's also about the best conclusion I could come up to in the moment and here and now is to know to know my boundaries and what works for me, and at the same time they deserve to know their boundaries, and somehow we have to be able to navigate things together and not hold it, and for me not hold it against them. And what I'm trying to communicate here, to be more clear, is it isn't always clear.
No, but it's not mind control either. Just because it's not clear doesn't mean it's mind control. Okay, so when we live as a society, when we live together, we obviously have to agree on certain, ways of living together, and they are different in each country, in each city, in each village, in each family. Okay, so yeah, there is a certain, external control through rules and regulations, if you will, but that is not necessarily mind control. We can agree or disagree with them consciously, and we can say, okay, we have a legal system, it's different in each of our countries and so forth, that can take care of that. Yeah, so if there is an issue with dogs, for example, there's no mind control in that. Yeah, it's a legal issue for the most part. Yeah, if people don't disagree. Okay.
Thank you. It has nothing to do with mind control. I
No.
appreciate that. Thank you.
No, we have to navigate through our life, and challenges and uncomfortable situations that stem from just living together. Okay, and that is not necessarily mind control. If anything, we can detect that we have internal issues. Justine, that's what I'm hearing here with, like, say, confronting something. Okay, I have a fear of confrontation, and therefore I don't express myself, and therefore I suppress, and therefore blah blah blah. But that is not necessarily mind control. Okay, this is we are early childhood programming, psychology and sociology. Okay, so mind control weaves into sociology and psychology, but it is more the deliberate and strategic change of that. Okay, and we find this more in situations or examples that you guys have mentioned before, yeah, where we are feeling under the influence of something that does that to us against our better knowing or against our better understanding. And just to give you a heads up here on what these characteristics of mind control are, when they are used deliberately, they alter a person's freedom of choice and free will on the level of worldview, how they see the 3D reality, on the level of perception, that is more sort of the framework, okay, with which you see things, the level of thinking, decision making, physical memory. That would be a form of conditioning that happens, we go deeper into this here, often in childhood. Emotional stability, behaviors, habits, beliefs, mindsets, frame of reference, sense of normal, self-identity, trauma, needs and boundaries. Justine, you just mentioned that. Faith, sovereignty, and etheric reality. So depending on what our personal journey has brought to us, we have different triggers, we have different traumas, we have different socialization, we have a different psychology. And therefore, we cannot sort of generalize and say that everything that affects us is mind control. No. There is, like Becky said, there is a part in us, all right, that interacts with that. And this is the part where we need to learn ourselves. Yeah. So the mechanics of mind control used deliberately in this slide is not very organized here, but you can see it by the just the amount, and there could be even more so, even more of these mechanics, but it's not tactics. These are mechanics. It triggers or creates fear in us. Yeah, often by using a picture or like a delusive sort of common enemy, or the next doom or gloom. Okay, it uses the mind's tendency for self-deception in all its forms. It creates an echo chamber. That's something that we predominantly see here in form of propaganda, exposure, outside messaging, okay, that comes in, obviously through, media and social media. Narrowing options. It's a tactic that's called divide and conquer, okay, where we are being put into a place where, we only have all or nothing, either or good or bad, or if you're not on my team, if you're not for me, you got to be against me. Conditioning through altering our brain chemistry, that usually happens through reward and punishment, playing into addictive and dependency structures, triggering trauma responses and inner child attachments. Justine, this is what this situation that you just gave as an example did, but it wasn't really done deliberately. Okay, this was a happenstance. Yeah, when it's done deliberately, it's more in the sense of like how Cheryl shared in the beginning, through an authority, through some kind of, and Becky shared similar things. Only my way, or you need this, or I am the only one that can fix this. All right, that would be more the mind control aspect.
Well, in all fairness, I'm not speaking in terms of defense. I felt this energy 2 days ago, so unrelated to the event. So I am not surprised it unfolded into something, because I felt the energy 2 days before. So it's just really interesting. There might have been a mind control aspect previously on a linear basis. So it's just absolutely beyond my understanding, and I appreciate.
I mean, we are clear here that there's something like collective energy that also has an impact on us, okay? But collective energy is not mind control. Collective energy is a phenomenon, okay? So we are constantly interacting. And it would be oversimplifying if we say everything that we cannot explain is mind control. What this psychologically speaks for is more the existence of trauma, which can include any of these mechanics, okay, that was done to us in the past. And so now we see the world as hostile today, and sort of just oversimplify the world as everything coming from the outside is mind control. That is a delusion as well. That is the mind oversimplifying everything and saying everything, external is bad. That is also not the case. Further mechanics of mind control are interfering with our cognitive bias, and this is something that we see very strongly right now in social media and media, news media especially, idealisms, dualisms, oversimplifications, and generalisms. Okay, working with these sort of, if it's not that, then it's got to be that. You know, if you say, you know, like the political correctness, for instance, if you say something, you know, then that must mean you're a hater. Okay, these things are the mind control mechanics, guys, which are much more or require much more of our attention than our own trauma responses, because our own trauma responses, they have to do with our personal psychology, and that is something that we need to work on regardless. Okay, so just because you know, we educate ourselves on how mind control works, it cannot necessarily undo the trauma and the programming and you know, the habits that we've developed, the coping strategies, the addictions, and so forth, that we need to work with. This is ultimately the subject here of this 24-step course. Okay, how to unlock the layers of that and work with that, because mind control mechanics trigger this physical, this animalistic part in us, and that's where trauma is located. It's the amygdala. It's not our the rational part of our brain. It's the part in our brain that has only fight, flight, or freeze as options. Okay, and that has a lot to do, you know, the higher the degree of trauma in a person, the stronger, also the bigger the amygdala becomes. The obvious mechanics of mind control is that they strengthen the collective ego or external identity through movements, yeah, social justice, climate change. Those are some of these current sort of populistic subjects that you have to be extremely careful with. I gave you the whole entire list of inoculation words, because those are all words that are being used to pull you out of your own thinking and your own decision making. Yeah. And last but not least, they play on our basic needs for safety and belonging. This is linked to the amygdala. So mind controls are their common tactics to strategically and deliberately exploit, coerce, manipulate, control, overpower, or submit for the purpose of self-interest. And this is the part here that those of you who have studied mind control a little bit, where you need to be a bit more precise. This is where all the conspiracy, not all, but most of the conspiracy theories really nullify themselves. The purpose of self-interest. You have to investigate, you have to ask why. What is this organization, person, entity, or whatever? What is this self-interest? What is the gain? When you learn to investigate this, you will also become more familiar with your own self-gain. And that is then, you know, Becky, where we all ultimately come to the conclusion that we are not just subject to mind control, we also use mind control. You know, emotional projection being the simplest but most effective way of mind controlling others. So what are the tactics here? We don't have the time to run through all of them. I just want to give you sort of a comprehensiveness here, a list, yeah, that is very specific on how these tactics work on us, yeah, how we can also detect them. So everybody is susceptible to mind control. Mind control is not just something of that stupid people fall for. It's very important to understand this, especially energetically sensitives who are not trained, who are not able to discern these unseen energies, know exactly which are mine and which aren't. But especially people who have a tendency to mentalize, yeah, who disconnect from their body and their emotions, are very, very susceptible to mind control. because it, at the core of it, uses the dualism of our own mind, which is the belief, the core belief, that the cause for all suffering lies outside of ourselves, and that we therefore need something from the outside, or we need to attack or avoid, remove or control the outside. This is really the sort of the ultimate, the original wound, the ultimate ego fallacy that we're up against. So falling for mind control has nothing to do with intelligence. It prides on our ego mind's perception and susceptibility for self-deception, which cannot be detected by the mind itself. You can see now why people who are mentalizing are more susceptible. Yeah. So what in us is it? Then it's the inability to deal with our own cognitive dissonances. Do you guys all know what the cognitive dissonances are? There's maybe a less psychological word for this. It's called inner conflict. Yeah. The back and forth. Yeah. So us going into our own ruminating, into our own back and forth, into our own inner conflictions. We're unable to deal with them by ourselves. Our mind cannot detect that. It cannot resolve it. Our mind's tendency to rationalize. Do you guys know what I mean with that? To find pros and cons, or to make things right, or to smooth over, or to whitewash, or say, yeah, I didn't really want that, or it's okay this time, I'm going to change it next time. Can you relate to that? That is our mind that does that. Specialness makes us especially susceptible for mind control, because all it really takes is to say to you, oh, you're so cool, oh, this is so cool, you're so pretty, oh, your thought is so special, you're so intelligent, you are so special. It makes you extremely susceptible, because then you are opening yourself up for any kind of programming that comes with it, especially, which is very deceptive, rewards. Yeah, reward through validation, reward through pedestaling, Laziness is probably the main reason why we don't want to know ourselves, because it takes work. You guys confirmed this already. It takes a lot of work. It's a lifelong process. Our mind likes shortcuts. Our mind likes delusions. It likes simplicity. You cannot count on your mind, guys. It either, it's overcomplicate or oversimplify things, because it only thinks in patterns. It doesn't want to think every thought all the way to the end. It doesn't want to feel every feeling all the way to the end. It just wants to come to a judgment, to a conclusion right away. Can you guys relate to that?
Yes.
Yeah, like normal. Say something about this. Like, don't let me hang here. This is a big one, isn't it? I mean,
it's huge. I mean, I can see that in a lot of, I mean, even today, I have moments where I step back into, I suppose, the familiar.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's just easier, because, for me it's, my mind thinks it's easier.
Yeah.
Yet internally I know it's not. It just creates a whole lot of crud around me. But
and it can make us agree. It can make us to agree to things that are actually unhealthy to us, that we already know they're unhealthy. But somehow, you know, I love how you just said it just is easier, because that's exactly how the mind sounds, right? How the ego sounds inside of our head. It's just easier. Like we dismiss
Oh, I
things.
know how to do this. This is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so used to doing it this way. Let me just keep doing it this way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Here, this is plays into the need for controllability, normality, and comfort zone. You know, because
Yes.
it just feels easier. Yeah, but yeah, it's a form of laziness.
Yep,
And then
absolutely.
all the way
Because it is hard to. It is, you know, it is a fair bit of work and self-discipline to change that way of thinking.
Yeah, because we like our illusions and delusions, right? We defend them.
Yes,
too.
they are. They're so
Just
nice.
because, yeah.
You know, I look good if I do this, or you know, if I do that. But in essence, it just does not serve me.
No, but it does not serve me. See, this is a rational thought. This is a conclusion that you're coming to, an insight, really. And in that moment, when your ego says, it's just easier that way, where does your rationality go? It's not rational at all.
No. You know, sometimes, depending on who the person is, sometimes I go along with things because it's easier. But then I start to get this really internal scream, and I'm going, I have to go. This is just not working for me.
And that's the result of all the training, of all the work that you have done. Some of the discipline, some of the connection within, where you allow that part in you, that authentic part in you, or true self, as we call it here in the Sacred Self-Healing Community, to intervene, to inform you. You have trained yourself to listen to that one as sort of the ultimate authority. In fact, by aligning yourself to your inner truth and your true self, you have told yourself that the only authority, right, that you actually fully trust is that part of you.
Yeah. But, I have to admit, it does sometimes take a little bit to listen to what listen to myself. Because it's when.
Yeah, we have to train that too. What does it sound like? This inner voice, this true inner voice. What does it mean feel like when we're authentic with ourselves, when we're standing in truth? And then knowing truth is not even half the deal. We still need to train how to actually speak truth and act truth and go against all these habits that we have that are going on without us realizing. And Cheryl is exclaiming a huge big insight here. Thank you, Carmel. This is so helpful to hear you guys' voices. Cheryl, you're saying, oh my God, I'm mind controlling myself. Yes. Do you want to add something to this? It is actually what I want to show. It is not hard to mind control people because they're mind controlling themselves all day long.
I just had that light bulb when Carmel was speaking. I'm like, oh my God. That's exactly what happens every time I listen to my ego blah, 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 or my mind spewing off its opinions or whatever. That's what I'm doing. It never occurred to me I'm mind controlling myself. And I'm really, really good at it.
Because you're so intellectual, right? You're so mental and you're so spiritually trained.
Yeah. I'm so special. Of course I'm good at that too. This is hilarious.
This is a trap.
It's a lovely place to see.
This is what I want to show you guys. Okay? It's so easy to go into all these conspiracy theories and, like fantasizing and mystifying all of this. But trust me, 99.9% of mind control happens within yourself. And the more unaware you are, the more susceptible you become to outer mind control. The more you think you have it all figured out, the bigger of a victim you become. And this goes much further, guys. Here you see that the list is endless. Feeling guilty, ashamed, responsible for everything that what Becky brought in. It plays into that. It plays into uncertainty, into our anxiousness, into paranoia. It plays into our feeling of uselessness, of not feeling a purpose anymore. It literally, plays on our rigid mindsets. It plays on our alienation, on this sort of lost home, lost support structure that we all feel right now, especially through the COVID situation. It plays on our need for validation and belonging. I'm talking about our own mind, okay? It plays on our own fear of confrontation. It plays on our own ego's prime directives, namely seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. It plays on our need for controllability. We all want control, okay? We want normal. We want comfort zone. No, you're not alone, Nigel. This is the human condition. Mind controlling yourself, yeah. And this is extremely dangerous right now, because with all this self-help and all this, you got to work on yourself and program here and program there. But getting the illusion that we are beyond all this. It's like a double trap. Understand that the ego or the mind, the ego mind, cannot transcend itself. It's not possible. You need the reflection, you need the mirroring. And there's a lot we can learn, that we can do with ourselves. Yeah, and what is sort of the general antidote? If you look at the mechanics, the core mechanic of the mind is to externalize. Well, then the core antidote is to internalize. Yeah, but it comes with certain challenges. Yeah, and laziness and all these things, and specialness, all these things prevent us from tackling those challenges or wanting to do this. Yeah, we find good reasons why not. We have to really come to that place that we accept the limitations of our own mind, that we see the mind itself is a virtual reality, period. And that it's limited, and that it cannot detect its own self-deception. And this requires us to educate ourselves, obviously, and to internalize, to increase our inner connection, everything mindfulness, connecting with our body, breathing, meditating, transmissions, workshops like this, yeah, they help us to better discern. But in my personal experience, doing this for almost 20 years now with people, it's knowing your own ego traps and your own attachments, because we have this intricate psychology, yeah, that is composed out of how we were raised, how we were conditioned, how the traumas that we experienced, and so forth. And all these sort of mechanics of self-delusion, we have to understand them first. We have to learn to catch our inner dialogue, our inner judgments, our inner negativity, and all these dissonances, all these inner conflictions. We have to learn how to catch them. We don't need to know how to solve them. We just need to learn to catch them, because once you recognize how full of it you are, you understand that the biggest trap is that you're full of yourself. The biggest problem in inoculating yourself on mind control is getting yourself out of the way, because mind control uses that. You've already worked this out. You need to identify your true needs and your true wants. This is the authenticity task here. It comes with internalizing who you are, what influences you, what impacts you, what you truly want, what you truly need. this notion right now that people are frantically seeking and looking for purpose is extremely dangerous, guys. It doesn't take a fortune teller, to predict fanaticism and mind control and cults, because people are lost right now, and this has to do with the way we are deceiving ourselves by thinking we got it all figured out. We need to learn from our error perceptions and see them as the natural way of evolving as a human, reframe them as learning and maturing. That is then what leads to authenticity. The more error perceptions we can detect, the more of this inner self-control we can detect, the better we learn to become real. Okay? Every single time you detect your own self-deception, you are now a bit wiser, a bit more authentic. That is, if you are willing to continue to evolve. Learn to breathe through challenges and center, because not every challenge is mind control. Okay, you have to do the centering, where when you are in yourself. Okay, so the only really big thing you need to ask yourself is this mine or is this not? Am I in myself, or am I, being caught up in what happens outside of me? Remember, your biggest ego fallacy is to externalize everything. Respond rather than react. That's where mindfulness helps. It helps you to slow down your own reactivity. Reactivity is located in your amygdala. Responding comes from your heart in conjunction with your mind. It comes from think-feeling, where you think and feel all the way to the end, and come to your own conclusion what it actually means to you. This is what gives things meaning, guys, and this is also what gives you purpose. Aligning your higher self, aligning to your higher consciousness, to your higher power. This can be spiritual, if you like, but it can also just be, in the sense that you recognize that it is also part of the human condition to evolve into a higher consciousness, because we have the potential to do that. Allow that to guide you. And my tip for you is make it a game. See this as the wow, not a control game. See this as a wonderful, wondrous, opportunity to overcome your own limitations. Be happy every time you detect self-deception, because the moment you have that insight that you've deceived yourself prior to this moment is what gives you the power to change that. Be proud of yourself that you just detected that. Internalize it. And it helps, yes, Nigel, it helps to be surrounded by people who see it the same way, right? Who can talk in ways like, guess what I detected today? I detected how I lied to myself about, fill in the blank. And to get a healthy laugh out of this and to be happy about this. Because it makes you become more real, more authentic. So to conclude here, the practical self-healing strategies, guys, you already know this, because this is literally what every step here in this sacred self-healing experience teaches. Observe all perceptions and learn to discern. Allow yourself to let it run. Allow yourself to think and feel it all the way through. Okay, and develop a habit of self-inquiry. What does this make me feel like, and what's underneath it? Journal. Very, very important, because see, the ego does this in split seconds. And if you have these insights, write them down, okay? Because you forget about them right away. The inner, mind control will immediately take over and put this in the sort of least attractive corner. if you journal it, you can remind yourself of it. And you're like, oh yeah, dang, I can remember that. Acknowledge your own delusions. Work with your ego attachments. Understand why they're there. If you have a fear of this, or a fear of confrontation, or a fear of, whatever your trauma is, work with it. Actively work with healing it, so you're less susceptible. Find healthier expressions. Find healthier ways, more conducive ways to nurture yourself. Self-care. Make a conscious choice to shift. Sometimes it's also part of our human condition. We get caught in all of this, and that's okay. All you got to do is hang on, time out. Okay, this ain't feeling right. I'm not myself right now. Okay? You don't need to know the answers. You just need to be willing to make a conscious shift. That is a choice too, and that grounds you, centers you back into you by just saying, wait, I don't want that. Learn to relax and breathe and ground at any situation. This can happen if you train this, so meditation, transmissions, energy alignments can happen within split seconds, that you can sort of recenter yourself, reset and recenter, become aware of your own states, find creative outlets, find other ways to express. Increase your emotional literacy is a huge big part. Energy coaching is all about this, guys. That's also where journaling comes in, because if you don't write things down, if you don't hear your own thoughts, if you don't share in those workshops and opportunities to talk, I found one of the most wonderful opportunities to work on this is in the daily meditations that we do on Skype, because we have a half an hour talking part before we go into the step meditation. This helps you. This is what consciousness work is all about, and especially when you do this with others, because you have this mirror there. And by hearing other people say things, you automatically increase your emotional literacy, your vocabulary. Yes, and this then ultimately leads to an increase of the quality of your communication. And I think we all agree here as active self-healers that communication is the means, not just internally, but also externally, to become more real, to become more authentic. That is the way it happens. Yeah, so inner and outer connection, guys. Internalization and authenticity are the best way to inoculate yourself from mind control, and especially from mind controlling yourself, because that's at the core of any mind control, even etheric abuse. So internalization, authenticity, energetic sensitivity are all linked with another. The more aware you become of your own projections and your own etheric reality and what you put out there, the more protected you become from outer etheric and unseen manipulation. It is only your own mind's deception that tells you that you don't have to do anything, you're the victim. All right, guys, we went a little over time, but I super appreciate your sharing. This is really what it comes down to, okay? Every time we hear another. So thank you for that. Thank you for contributing in this way. All right, and yeah, share these messages, share these insights, okay? This is all product of, these meditations, these, $39 a month, that gives you a whole community, that gives you this ability to work with yourself on an ongoing level. Yeah. All right, guys, I have to go now. Thank you. I see you soon, and I'm wishing you a happy self-discovery and detecting your own mind control. All right. If you want to, you can share what you discovered in the forum for this recording. The recording will be sent out to all of you. And there's, as always, a forum thread where you can share your you know, what you've detected. Thank you very much.